Welcome to our deep dive into one of the most perplexing murder mysteries in American history, the JonBenét Ramsey case. Today, we're starting at the very beginning, setting the stage with every chilling detail. It's Boulder, Colorado, December 25th, 1996. The Ramsey family, John, Patsy, their 6-year-old daughter JonBenét, and 9-year-old son Burke, celebrate Christmas at their home on 755 15th Street after attending a party at Fleet White's house.
The Ramseys sound like a close-knit family. Can you tell me more about their backgrounds, especially JonBenét herself? What was her life like before this tragedy?
JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia. She was a child beauty queen, winning multiple pageants like Little Miss Colorado and National Tiny Miss Beauty. Patsy, herself a former Miss West Virginia, was heavily involved in her daughter's pageant career. John Ramsey was the president of Access Graphics, a successful computer services company, and the family was well off, living in a sprawling Tudor-style home in Boulder.
It's striking how prominent they were in their community. What was the atmosphere like in their home that Christmas night? Were there any unusual events or tensions?
That evening, the Ramseys attended a Christmas party at Fleet White's home with several family friends. JonBenét received a new bike as a present, and by all accounts, the evening seemed joyful. They returned home around 9:30 p.m. JonBenét went straight to bed. There's speculation about a late-night snack. Pineapple was found in her stomach during autopsy, leading to theories she may have been awake after midnight, possibly with her brother Burke. No major disturbances were reported that night.
Early the next morning, things changed dramatically. What happened during those critical early hours on December 26th?
At approximately 5:30 a.m., Patsy Ramsey wakes up and discovers a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the back stairs leading to the kitchen. The note claims JonBenét has been kidnapped and demands $118,000, a suspiciously specific sum exactly matching John's recent Christmas bonus. The note instructs not to call the police, but in a panic, Patsy dials 911 at 5:52 a.m. She also calls family friends, including Fleet White, to their home.
That Ramsey note is so detailed and odd. What did it say, and how did investigators react to it?
The note's tone is theatrical and rambling. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20. It warns not to contact authorities or friends and threatens JonBenét's life. Investigators found it strange. It was unusually long for a ransom note, contained obscure references, and was written on paper from the Ramseys' home. Immediately, the Boulder police and FBI were called in. The initial focus was on preparing to comply with the ransom instructions, but suspicion quickly arose regarding its authenticity.
When police arrived, how did they conduct their search? Were there any immediate mistakes or unusual findings?
Officer Rick French arrives just before 6 a.m. He conducts a cursory search, including the basement, but does not open a door secured by a wooden latch. This door later proves critical. The forensics team assumes it's a kidnapping, and only JonBenét's bedroom is sealed off. The rest of the house remains open, allowing family, friends, and victim advocates to move freely, inadvertently contaminating potential evidence. Friends clean the kitchen, further complicating forensic analysis.
That sounds like a major procedural error. Did anyone notice signs of forced entry or anything out of place?
No obvious signs of forced entry were found. The basement window was open, with disturbances in the debris around it, leading investigators to consider it a possible entry point. However, the house was full of people, and many surfaces had already been cleaned. The ransom note itself was the most unusual piece of evidence at that stage. Officer French's decision not to open the basement door would later be heavily scrutinized.
When was JonBenét's body discovered, and who found her? What was the scene like?
Around 1 p.m., Detective Linda Arndt instructs John Ramsey and Fleet White to conduct a top-to-bottom search of the house. John opens the basement spare room door and finds JonBenét's body. She's on the floor, mouth and neck covered in duct tape, a cord around her neck, and her wrists bound. John removes the tape and picks up her body, running upstairs screaming. This action unfortunately compromises critical evidence. Arndt later moves JonBenét's body closer to the Christmas tree upstairs.
That must have been a traumatic moment. What did the initial forensic analysis reveal about JonBenét's injuries and cause of death?
The autopsy confirms JonBenét was strangled. There's also evidence of a severe head injury, a skull fracture measuring 8.5 inches. There are signs of sexual assault, but forensic evidence is limited and inconclusive. The cord used for strangulation was fashioned into a garrote, made from a paintbrush handle found nearby. Duct tape covers her mouth, and her wrists are bound with white cord. The coroner determines the cause of death as asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma.
Were there any fingerprints, DNA, or other physical evidence found at the scene that pointed to a suspect?
The crime scene yields partial DNA samples, touch DNA found in JonBenét's underwear and beneath her fingernails. However, these samples don't match any family members or known suspects. Fibers, hair, and unidentified material are collected, but contamination from so many people in the house makes analysis difficult. The ransom note is written with a pen and pad from inside the home, and handwriting analysis is inconclusive. No clear fingerprints are found on the note or duct tape.
With so much evidence compromised, what were the initial theories? Did investigators suspect an intruder or focus on the family?
Initially, police considered both possibilities. The Ramseys' behavior and the bizarre ransom note led some investigators to suspect the family, especially Patsy. Others pointed to possible intruder theories: a window left open in the basement, disturbed debris, and unidentified DNA. Detective Linda Arndt reportedly felt strongly that the killer was in the house that morning. The case quickly became polarized between intruder and family-focused theories.
Did the police interview the Ramseys immediately? How did the family respond to the investigation?
The Ramseys lawyered up almost immediately and were hesitant to give full interviews to police, which fueled suspicion. They did provide formal interviews later, but their initial reluctance was seen as suspicious by some investigators. Their son Burke, just 9 years old, was also questioned, but only in detail years later. No evidence ever pointed directly to him, but his demeanor and statements have been scrutinized endlessly.
You mentioned Burke. What was his role that night, and what did his interviews reveal?
Burke was reportedly asleep during the crucial early morning hours, according to his parents. However, enhanced 911 audio years later revealed his voice in the background during the call, contradicting the family's claim that he was asleep. Burke was first interviewed by police at age 9, with more extensive questioning occurring when he was 11. No evidence ever pointed directly to him, but his demeanor and statements have been scrutinized endlessly.
The ransom note seems so theatrical and odd. Did experts analyze its language and handwriting?
Absolutely. Handwriting experts compared the note to samples from Patsy and John. While Patsy's writing was similar in some ways, the analysis was inconclusive. No definitive match was found. Linguistic experts noted odd phrases, like "don't try to grow a brain," which appeared in popular films. The length and detail were highly atypical for ransom notes. The FBI considered it suspiciously staged, possibly meant to mislead investigators.
That detail about the movie references is fascinating. What movies were quoted or referenced in the note?
The phrase, "don't try to grow a brain, John," is reminiscent of dialogue from the movie Speed, and other lines echo phrases from Dirty Harry and Ransom. This led some to theorize the note's author was familiar with crime movies or intentionally used these references to muddle the investigation. The dramatic tone and excessive detail were unlike any authentic ransom notes previously studied by experts.
That detail about the movie references is fascinating. What movies were quoted or referenced in the note?
The phrase, "don't try to grow a brain, John," is reminiscent of dialogue from the movie Speed, and other lines echo phrases from Dirty Harry and Ransom. This led some to theorize the note's author was familiar with crime movies or intentionally used these references to muddle the investigation. The dramatic tone and excessive detail were unlike any authentic ransom notes previously studied by experts.
With all these strange clues, how did the investigation proceed in the first days? Were there any immediate suspects or arrests?
No arrests were made initially. The Boulder Police, FBI, and District Attorney's Office all became involved. The Ramseys remained under intense scrutiny, with media speculation running rampant. Several family friends were interviewed, including Fleet White and Priscilla White, who had been in the house that morning. The investigation quickly became mired in procedural missteps and conflicting theories. The case was officially treated as a homicide after JonBenét's body was found.
It sounds like confusion and chaos ruled those first days. Did police find any clues in the basement window area, since you mentioned disturbances there?
Yes, the basement window was found open, and debris around it suggested recent movement, possibly an entry or exit point for an intruder. Crime scene photos show the window ajar. However, the lack of footprints in the snow outside and the absence of conclusive physical evidence left investigators divided. Some believed it was staged, while others saw it as a genuine point of entry.
What about witness accounts? Did anyone outside the family report anything suspicious in the neighborhood that night?
Several neighbors, including Melody Stanton, reported hearing a scream around midnight, but Stanton later recanted. Another neighbor, Bill McReynolds, was a local Santa Claus who had visited the Ramseys days earlier. He became a person of interest due to his closeness to the family and odd comments, but no evidence ever implicated him. Witness accounts were inconsistent and often contradictory, making it difficult to establish a clear timeline.
Were there any psychological profiles or expert opinions on the likely perpetrator based on the crime scene and evidence?
Profilers from the FBI and outside experts offered differing views. Some believed the killer exhibited signs of familiarity with the house and victim, pointing to a personal motive. Others thought the staging of evidence, like the ransom note and garrote, suggested a deliberate attempt to mislead, perhaps by someone with knowledge of police procedures. The sexual assault evidence, while inconclusive, added another layer of psychological complexity.
With such a high-profile case, how did media coverage affect How did the media and the public react once the news broke? Did this affect the investigation?
The case instantly became a media circus. Images of JonBenét in pageant regalia fueled public fascination and outrage. The intense scrutiny led to leaks, rampant speculation, and even harassment of the Ramsey family. The pressure was immense. Investigators faced criticism over perceived missteps, and every move was dissected by the press.
What about the Ramseys themselves? How did they behave in the aftermath? Did police suspect them early on?
The Ramseys' behavior became a focus. Patsy's emotional 911 call, John's decision to move the body, and their reluctance to speak publicly at first all raised suspicions. Police initially viewed the family as suspects, in part because the crime scene suggested familiarity with the house and the lack of forced entry. Still, there was no direct evidence linking them to the murder.
Were there any other possible suspects or persons of interest at this stage?
Investigators looked at several suspects, including family friends, neighbors, and known sex offenders in Boulder. The Whites, who hosted the Ramseys on Christmas, were questioned extensively. Several leads fizzled out, DNA did not match, and alibis held up. Some theorized an intruder targeted JonBenét after seeing her at pageants, but no solid evidence supported this theory.
What did experts say about the psychological profile of the potential killer? Did they believe it was someone close to JonBenét?
Behavioral analysts noted the crime was personal and emotionally charged. The use of a garrote, the positioning of the body, and the handwritten note suggested either an elaborate staged scene or a deeply disturbed perpetrator with intimate knowledge of the family. Some experts believed it was a crime of rage, possibly by someone JonBenét knew.
How did forensic experts assess the evidence, like the fibers, hair, and DNA found at the scene?
Forensics uncovered fibers from Patsy's clothing on the duct tape and animal hairs matching the family's dog on JonBenét's blanket. The DNA in JonBenét's underwear belonged to an unknown male, but it didn't match any family member or known suspect. The garrote's construction was unique. Knots and ligatures suggested knowledge of sailing or scouting, but that detail didn't lead to a breakthrough.
Did the family cooperate with police during the investigation? Were there any tensions?
The Ramseys initially cooperated, but after being named suspects, they hired legal counsel and PR specialists. Tensions rose between the Ramseys and Boulder police. Each accused the other of mishandling the case. The family gave interviews and passed polygraphs arranged by their own experts, but refused some police-requested interviews without conditions.
What role did the grand jury play at this point? Did they come to any conclusions?
In 1999, a grand jury convened to review evidence. They recommended indicting John and Patsy for child abuse resulting in death, suggesting they believed the parents bore some responsibility. But the district attorney declined to prosecute, citing insufficient evidence. The grand jury's findings were sealed for years, fueling further speculation.
Have there been any significant developments in the forensic evidence over the years?
Advances in DNA testing have yielded new information, but no definitive answers. In 2008, the Boulder DA cleared the Ramsey family after new DNA tests excluded them as contributors to the unknown male DNA. However, many experts remain skeptical, citing possible contamination and the limitations of the evidence.
Harper, what about the psychological impact on the family and the Boulder community?
The trauma was profound. Patsy struggled with guilt and depression for the rest of her life. She died of ovarian cancer in 2006. John Ramsey lost not only his daughter, but also his reputation and business. Burke, who was only 9, retreated from public life, facing intense media scrutiny. The Boulder community, once seen as idyllic, was shaken to its core, and trust in law enforcement was eroded.
Did the case change how child murder investigations are handled in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Law enforcement agencies across the country reviewed their protocols for handling child abductions and homicides. The JonBenét case highlighted the importance of securing crime scenes, limiting access, and managing media relations. It also brought attention to the psychological dynamics of families under suspicion and the need for interagency cooperation.
Were there any notable quotes from investigators or family members that stand out from this period?
Detective Linda Arnott later recalled, "I had this sense I was the only cop in the house. I didn't know if I'd walk out alive." Patsy Ramsey, in her first public statement, pleaded, "Please, let our daughter come home. We love you, JonBenét." John Ramsey, devastated, told reporters, "There is a killer on the loose." These words captured the fear and uncertainty that gripped everyone involved.
With all this detail, it's clear how complex and heartbreaking the story really is. What's next in the investigation timeline?
The next phase saw the media frenzy intensify, private investigators enter the scene, and new suspects and theories emerge. The case would spiral into years of false leads, legal battles, and public debate, with the truth remaining just out of reach. But the shadow of that Christmas night and the unanswered questions haunt Boulder to this day.
As the Ramseys family's Christmas Day in 1996 draws to a close, JonBenét, a bright, vibrant 6-year-old, is tucked into bed after an evening spent at a family friend's party. She's just received a new bike as a gift, and the house is quiet, except for the faint possibility, suggested by later evidence, that she might have snuck downstairs for a snack of pineapple, which would become a crucial piece of the puzzle.
The next morning, December 26th, just before dawn, Patsy Ramsey wakes up around 5:30 a.m. to make coffee and stumbles upon something horrifying: a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on the back stairs to the kitchen, demanding $118,000, the exact amount of John's recent Christmas bonus, and warning them not to call police or friends.
Wait, Harper, can you describe the ransom note in more detail? What exactly did it say, and why was that specific amount significant? Also, how was the note discovered, and what was Patsy's immediate reaction?
The note, addressed to Mr. Ramsey, is chillingly specific. It starts with, "Listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves." It demands $118,000 in 2 denominations, $100,000 in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills, matching John's bonus to the dollar, a detail only someone close to the family might know. The note threatens JonBenét's life if the Ramseys contact police or deviate from the instructions. Despite this, Patsy immediately calls 911 at 5:52 a.m., her voice frantic, reporting a kidnapping. This call sets in motion a chaotic and fateful series of events that will forever alter the case. The note's length, tone, and demands become central to the investigation, with handwriting analysts later scrutinizing every stroke for clues.
That's so unsettling. The precision of the amount, the threatening language. What happened next, once the police were called? Who arrived first, and how did they initially handle the scene?
Within minutes, Boulder police officer Rick French responds to the 911 call, arriving at the Ramsey home at 5:58 a.m. He's met by a distraught Patsy who hands him the ransom note. French conducts a cursory search of the house, looking for signs of forced entry or anything out of place, but finds nothing. He even pauses at a door in the basement, a door secured by a wooden latch at the top, but doesn't open it, reasoning that a kidnapper couldn't have exited that way since the latch was on the inside. This decision will haunt the investigation, as JonBenét's body is later discovered behind that very door. Meanwhile, the scene is already compromised. Friends, family, and even the family's minister begin arriving, some cleaning surfaces in the kitchen, potentially destroying evidence.
That's a huge oversight. So the police didn't secure the crime scene immediately? How did the investigation proceed from there, and when did detectives get involved?
Exactly. The initial response is chaotic. The police treat it as a kidnapping, not a homicide, so only JonBenét's bedroom is cordoned off to preserve evidence. The rest of the house remains accessible, and the crime scene is further contaminated as John arranges to pay the ransom, per the note's instructions. Around 8 a.m., Detective Linda Arnott arrives, taking charge as the lead investigator. She's there in case the kidnappers make contact, but no call ever comes. Hours pass with no word, and the tension in the house is unbearable. Arnott, sensing something is amiss, eventually asks John Ramsey and family friend Fleet White to conduct a thorough search of the house for anything unusual. It's during this search, just after 1 p.m., that John opens the latched basement door Officer French had skipped earlier and discovers his daughter's body in a small windowless room.
That's devastating. Can you describe exactly how JonBenét was found and what the scene looked like to John and the first responders?
The moment is horrific. John sees JonBenét's small body lying on the floor, her mouth covered with duct tape, a nylon cord around her neck, and her wrists bound. There's a white blanket draped over her torso. In shock, John removes the tape, picks up his daughter, and carries her upstairs, screaming for help. This act, while understandable in the moment, further contaminates the crime scene. Critical forensic evidence is disturbed, and the body is moved before the coroner or forensic team can properly document its position. The Boulder County coroner's team eventually removes JonBenét's body at 10:45 p.m., but by then, the scene has been irrevocably altered by well-meaning but frantic actions.
That's such a critical misstep. How did investigators process the crime scene after the body was discovered, and what early forensic evidence did they collect?
Once the case shifts from kidnapping to homicide, the investigation intensifies, but the damage is already done. The forensic team, led by Boulder PD, begins collecting evidence: the ransom note, the bowl of pineapple with a spoon found on the kitchen table, and Patsy's fingerprints on it, fibers, fingerprints, and DNA samples from everyone in the house. The autopsy, performed the next day, reveals JonBenét died from asphyxia due to strangulation, with a skull fracture as a contributing factor. The official cause of death is asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. Investigators find a garrote, a crude device made from a nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush. Part of the paintbrush is found in Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third is never recovered, despite an exhaustive search.
That's so specific.
While grand jury proceedings are sealed, we know they heard from dozens of witnesses over more than a year. The fact that 12 citizens who heard all the evidence voted to indict suggests they found testimony compelling enough to believe the parents placed JonBenét in harm's way, even if they couldn't determine exactly what happened or who struck the fatal blow.
This creates such a complex picture. With all these conflicting testimonies and evidence, how did investigators try to reconcile the different theories? Did anyone attempt to create a unified explanation?
The case essentially split into two camps with irreconcilable theories. The Boulder police largely maintained their belief in family involvement, while investigators like Lou Smith championed the intruder theory. District Attorney Alex Hunter found himself caught between these competing narratives, ultimately deciding that despite the grand jury's recommendation, the conflicting evidence made conviction unlikely.
Looking at all these witness accounts and expert testimonies, what picture emerges about what might have actually happened that night? Do the testimonies point toward any particular scenario?
The testimonies create a maddening puzzle where every piece of evidence seems to have an innocent explanation, yet the totality feels suspicious. Whether you believe an intruder committed this horrific crime or that family members were involved depends largely on which set of evidence you find most compelling: the foreign DNA and signs of forced entry, or the insider knowledge apparent in the ransom note and physical evidence linking the family to the crime scene. What makes this case so enduring is that 29 years later, with all these witness interviews and expert testimonies, we still don't have definitive answers. The investigation remains open and active, with the Boulder police continuing to follow new leads and test evidence with advancing DNA technology, hoping that someday, someone's testimony or a breakthrough in forensic science will finally solve the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. So, let's dive into the development of suspects and the various theories surrounding JonBenét's murder. Initially, the investigation focused on potential intruders due to the presence of a ransom note and an unidentified boot mark in the basement. One of the early persons of interest was a neighbor named Bill McReynolds and a local reporter named Chris Wolf.
However, as the investigation progressed, the focus shifted towards the Ramsey family themselves, particularly John and Patsy.
That's fascinating. What led investigators to suspect the Ramseys? Wasn't there a lot of evidence pointing to an intruder?
Yes, there were several factors. The ransom note, for instance, demanded $118,000, which was the exact amount of John's Christmas bonus. This detail raised suspicions about the note's authenticity and whether it was written by someone familiar with the family's financial situation. Additionally, the lack of forced entry and the presence of undisturbed cobwebs in the basement window challenged the intruder theory.
That's a really interesting point. Can you tell me more about the handwriting analysis? How did it impact the investigation?
On March 7, 1997, a handwriting analysis was conducted, which eliminated John as the author of the ransom note. However, it suggested that Patsy might have written it. This led investigators to seek more handwriting samples from Patsy, hoping to find a match. The fact that Patsy could potentially have written the note further complicated the case and raised more questions about her involvement.
That must have been a pivotal moment. Did Burke Ramsey ever become a suspect? And if so, what evidence was there against him?
Burke Ramsey was indeed considered a suspect by some due to a theory that he might have argued with JonBenét over a snack. However, there was no concrete evidence linking him to the crime. The pineapple found in JonBenét's stomach was one of the factors that fueled this speculation, but it was largely based on circumstantial evidence and speculation rather than hard facts.
I see. What about the DNA evidence? How did that play into the investigation?
The DNA evidence was crucial. Initially, DNA tests were conducted, but they didn't yield a clear match. However, in 2008, new DNA evidence was found on JonBenét's clothing, which matched an unknown male DNA profile. This finding was significant because it suggested that an intruder might have been involved, although it did not conclusively prove it.
That's a big twist. How did this new DNA evidence impact the case?
The discovery of the new DNA evidence led to a formal exoneration of the Ramsey family by the Boulder District Attorney's Office in 2008. This was a significant development, as it officially cleared the family of suspicion based on the DNA findings. However, the case remains unsolved, and the DNA has not been matched to a known individual.
I'm surprised by how much speculation there was about the Ramseys. What about the psychological aspects of the case? Were there any insights into potential motives or behaviors?
The psychological aspect of the case was complex. There were theories about potential motives within the family, but nothing concrete. The Ramseys hired former FBI agent John E. Douglas, who believed in their innocence and supported the intruder theory. His expert opinion was influential, but the case remains a mystery.
That's really interesting. Can you tell me more about John E. Douglas's involvement and his theories?
John E. Douglas was a renowned criminal profiler who worked with the Ramsey family. He believed that the evidence supported the intruder theory, suggesting that someone entered the house through an open window or door. His involvement was significant because he brought a professional perspective that countered some of the suspicions against the Ramseys.
I see. What about the role of Detective Lou Smith? How did his theory impact the investigation?
Detective Lou Smith was a key figure in the case. He also believed in the intruder theory, suggesting that someone entered through a broken basement window. Smith's theory included the use of a stun gun to subdue JonBenét. His resignation from the case in 1998 was a significant moment, as he felt the investigation was not pursuing the intruder lead aggressively enough.
That's a compelling theory. Were there any other notable investigators or experts involved in the case?
Yes, Linda Arnott was one of the first detectives on the scene. Her role was crucial in the initial stages of the investigation, particularly in managing the crime scene and ensuring that evidence was preserved. However, the contamination of evidence, such as the basement door being left open after JonBenét's body was found, complicated the case.
I'm curious about the impact of the crime scene contamination. How did it affect the investigation?
The contamination of the crime scene was a significant issue. When John Ramsey found JonBenét's body, he brought her upstairs, which disturbed potential evidence in the basement. Additionally, visitors to the house may have inadvertently destroyed evidence by cleaning surfaces. These actions made it difficult for investigators to gather conclusive evidence.
That must have been frustrating for the investigators. What about the psychological impact on the family? How did they cope with the suspicions and the loss?
The psychological toll on the Ramsey family was immense. They faced intense media scrutiny and public suspicion, which was compounded by their own grief over losing JonBenét. The family hired a publicist and investigators to help manage the situation and prove their innocence.
That's heartbreaking to think about. What about the community's reaction? How did they respond to the murder and the ongoing investigation?
The community in Boulder was shocked and saddened by the murder. There was a mix of sympathy for the Ramsey family and suspicion, given the unusual circumstances of the case. The community provided support, but the case also sparked a lot of speculation and debate about who could have committed such a crime.
I can imagine. What about the role of the media in the case? Did they influence public opinion?
The media played a significant role in shaping public opinion about the case. The intense coverage often fueled speculation and suspicion against the Ramseys, which added to the family's stress and the overall complexity of the investigation.
That's a good point. How did the case affect the legal system or investigative procedures in Boulder?
The JonBenét Ramsey case highlighted several issues within the legal and investigative systems. It led to discussions about how to handle high-profile cases better and the importance of preserving crime scenes.
The case also raised questions about DNA evidence and its role in criminal investigations.
I see. What are some of the lasting impacts of this case on true crime investigations? The JonBenét Ramsey case has had a lasting impact on true crime investigations by emphasizing the importance of DNA evidence, crime scene preservation, and public perception management. It also shows how complex and challenging it can be to solve cases involving multiple theories and suspects.
That's really insightful. What about the current status of the case? Is it still active?
The case remains unsolved, but it is not entirely closed. The Boulder Police Department continues to receive new leads and periodically re-examines evidence with advanced technology. The hope is that one day the case will be solved, bringing closure to the Ramsey family and the community.
I hope so. It's such a tragic case. What about the DNA evidence? Is there any chance it could lead to a breakthrough?
The DNA evidence is still a critical part of the investigation. Advances in DNA technology have made it possible to reanalyze old evidence, which could potentially lead to a match in the future. This keeps the case open and provides hope for a resolution.
That's a positive note. What about Burke Ramsey's recent involvement in the case? Has he spoken out about the theories surrounding him?
Burke Ramsey has spoken out about the case, including his involvement in a defamation lawsuit against a CBS documentary that suggested he might have been involved in JonBenét's murder. He has maintained his innocence and expressed frustration with the ongoing speculation.
I can understand why he'd feel that way. How does the case continue to captivate the public's imagination?
The JonBenét Ramsey case continues to fascinate the public due to its complexity, the tragic nature of the crime, and the ongoing mystery. The combination of a high-profile family, a gruesome murder, and the lack of a clear resolution has kept the case in the public eye for decades.
That makes sense. What about the impact on the true crime genre? How has this case influenced other investigations or documentaries?
The JonBenét Ramsey case has significantly influenced the true crime genre by highlighting the importance of detailed investigation and the impact of media on public perception. It has also inspired numerous documentaries and books, making it a landmark case in true crime storytelling.
I see how it would. What about the psychological insights into the killer? Are there any theories about their profile?
There have been various theories about the killer's profile, ranging from a calculated intruder to someone within the family.
That's really interesting. Did any other investigators or experts have notable reactions or insights into the case?
Yes, many experts have provided insights over the years. For instance, some have suggested that the killer might have been known to the family, given the specific details of the crime scene. However, these remain speculative theories.
I see. What about the role of the media in shaping public opinion and influencing the investigation? Was there any notable media coverage that impacted the case?
The media played a crucial role in shaping public opinion, often focusing on the Ramseys as suspects. This intense scrutiny likely influenced the investigation's direction and public perception of the family.
That makes sense. How did the community's perception of the Ramseys change over time?
Initially, the Ramseys were seen as suspects, but as more evidence emerged and they were cleared, public perception began to shift. The publication of their book and other media appearances helped humanize them and change public opinion.
I see. What about the psychological impact on JonBenét's brother, Burke? How did he deal with being a potential suspect and the loss of his sister?
Burke faced significant emotional challenges, both from being a potential suspect and dealing with the loss of his sister. However, he was eventually cleared, which likely helped him cope better with the situation.
That's really sad.
How did the family's friends, like Fleet White, support them during this time?
Friends like Fleet White were supportive, but they also faced their own frustrations with the investigation. White's request for a change in the district attorney handling the case reflects the level of dissatisfaction among those close to the Ramseys.
I see. What about the current efforts to solve the case? Are there any new leads or technologies being used?
Yes, recent efforts include the application of modern DNA technology to re-examine evidence. Additionally, a multidisciplinary team of experts is working to apply new forensic techniques to the case.
That's really hopeful. Do you think these efforts will lead to a breakthrough?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still a chance for resolution. The case remains a priority for many involved.
I see. What about the psychological profile of the killer? Have there been any updates or new insights?
The psychological profile suggests that the killer might have been someone familiar with the family, given the specific details of the crime. However, these are speculative and have not led to a specific suspect.
I see. What about the grand jury's investigation contributed to the case's complexity?
The grand jury investigation was a significant development, as it involved examining forensic evidence and hearing testimony. However, it concluded without issuing any indictments due to insufficient evidence.
I see. What about the role of the FBI in the investigation? Did they provide any significant assistance?
The FBI has been involved throughout the investigation, providing technical assistance and working closely with local authorities. Their involvement has been crucial in applying new forensic techniques to the case.
That's really interesting. Did the FBI ever provide any specific insights or theories about the case?
While the FBI has contributed significantly to the investigation, they have not publicly disclosed any specific theories or insights. Their role has been more about providing technical support.
I see. How did the community's perception of the case change over time?
Initially, the community was shocked and fearful, but as more information emerged and the Ramseys were cleared, perceptions began to shift. The case remains a topic of interest and concern in Boulder.
That makes sense. What about the ongoing impact of the case on the community?
The case has had a lasting impact on Boulder, with many residents still discussing it today. It has also led to improvements in local law enforcement procedures and community awareness.
That's really interesting. How did the Ramseys' public appearances and media interactions influence public perception?
The Ramseys' public appearances, including their book and interviews, helped to humanize them and shift public perception. They were able to present their side of the story and counter some of the negative media portrayals.
I see. What about the current status of the DNA evidence? Is there any chance it could lead to a breakthrough?
The DNA evidence remains a crucial part of the investigation. With advancements in DNA technology, there is still hope that it could lead to identifying a suspect in the future.
That's really hopeful. Do you think the case will ever be fully resolved?
While the case is complex and has been ongoing for many years, the ongoing efforts and advancements in technology suggest that there is still a chance for resolution. It remains one of the most intriguing unsolved murders in American history.
I see. What about the psychological impact on the community? How did they cope with the lack of resolution?
The community has faced significant emotional challenges due to the case's complexity and lack of resolution. However, the ongoing interest and discussions about the case reflect a continued desire for justice.
That's really sad. How did the investigation's focus on the Ramseys impact the family's life?
The focus on the Ramseys as suspects had a profound impact on their lives. They faced intense scrutiny and had to work hard to clear their names, which was a significant part of their journey.
I see. What about the role of the media in shaping the narrative of the case? Did they influence how the public perceived the Ramseys?
The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of the Ramseys. The intense scrutiny they faced likely influenced the investigation's direction and how the public viewed them.
I see. What about the Ramseys' book contributed to changing public perception?
The book provided a detailed account of their experiences and helped humanize them. It countered some of the negative media portrayals and shifted public perception in their favor.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggests that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of specific details of the crime. However, these are speculative and have not led to a specific suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.
I see. What about the current efforts to re-examine the evidence? Are there any new techniques being used?
Yes, investigators are using modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence. This includes advanced DNA analysis and other cold case methods, which could potentially lead to a breakthrough.
That's really interesting. Do you think these efforts will lead to identifying a suspect?
While it's difficult to predict, the determination of investigators and advancements in technology suggest that there is still hope for identifying a suspect.